within the first week, you're going to know how much you should be charging per hour to make money. Now, you can stay at home and lose money and, spend time with your family or watch Netflix. You don't have to go to work for 70 hours a week to try and lose money. Generally, you will perform better because you've got a coach. And so the same says for your business, if you liken it to that, well, you're probably going to perform a lot better when you've got a coach there beside you, lifting you up when you're down. If you haven't got money to invest in your business up front, you shouldn't be going into business for a start. A coach will help save you years and stress. I've got clients at the moment that started with me 5 months into their journey, and they were like, I wish I had you sooner.
Welcome back to Coach Curious, where we sit down with expert coaches and ask the questions you might have if you're curious about coaching. I'm your host, Ben, and today we're sitting down with Aaron Kemp, a business coach who's built his practice around the idea that tradies need coaches who actually understand the trades. Aaron spent years working as a chef, a painter, and a decorator, so he understands what it's like to quote on a job, manage cash flow between projects, and work those 70-hour weeks on the tools. Taking those insights and experiences into coaching, he's purpose-built his business programs and systems specifically for tradies trying to run better businesses. So welcome, Aaron. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me. I'm pretty excited about today. It's going to be cool.
Yeah, looking forward to getting into it. So I want to start off by sort of taking us back to the start of your career when you were getting started building out your businesses for the first time. Was there a moment where you sort of realized that mentoring was missing from your experience and sort of that level of guidance would help you manage better?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was pretty evident that I didn't know how to run a business when I started getting into quite a bit of debt. And I think it was at that point that went, you know what, I'm really good at what I do, but I have no idea how to run a business. And it's a typical problem that tradies have is like we work harder and then we go, I don't know where the money is. Like it says I should have this much money in my bank account. I've got no idea where it's gone. And that was the point where I went, you know what, I need some help here. I need someone to bounce stuff off. I need someone to kick me up the backside when I don't do what I say I'm going to do, but also that working on the back end of the business. So it was the sleepless nights and the stress that really drove me to go and find some help. And my wife got sick of hearing me. So she said, I can't help you.
I can imagine, yeah.
I
mean, when you were sort of setting that up for the first time, setting up your business, how did you even sort of get started with the financing and the back end of the operation? Where did you even sort of get started knowing what to do with that?
Look, the first step was, and this is what the coach pointed out, is he said, do you know your numbers? Do you know your margins? And I went, what do you mean? And he said, do you know your margins? Do you know your gross profit margin? Do you know your net profit margin? I was like, no. He said, well, that's how you make money in a business or a trades business specifically. You need to be hitting a 50% gross profit to hit a 20% net profit. Do you know those numbers? I was like, no. He said, do you know how much you should be charging per hour for your boys to make you money plus your net profit of 20%? I said, well, I think it's this much. He went, but how do you know? And so it was that point that I went, I've got no idea here. I'm really out of my depth. And what I was realizing was that I wasn't charging anywhere near enough to cover all my business expenses plus make money. And when we talk expenses, we're also talking things like reworks, rain days, the allowances for sick days, holiday pay, all of that has to be built into your hourly rate. So these are things that I just had no idea and couldn't work out on my own.
And did you say that you started to learn about that when you engaged with the coach?
Yes. Yeah. Up until then, I had no idea. I was flying blind.
And what was that experience like when you started out with a coach? How did you find them, or how did you sort of reach the decision that a coach was the solution to that problem?
I think it was in the sales meeting with the coach where he goes, where are you at? I'm going, well, I'm not making any money. He said, well, why are you not making any money? You're busy. And I went, I don't know. And he goes, would you like me to help you with that? I was like, yeah. So and in that point, he goes, just, worked his magic, took my figures, pulled profit and loss and went, here's where you need to start charging $100 an hour as a painter. Otherwise you're going under. I was like, that's 20 years ago, charging $100 an hour. People are going, you can't charge that. And I'm like, well, I have to.
Yeah. And I mean, you have experience across a number of different trades as well. How did you find sort of, jumping from one to the other and sort of upskilling the different back end operation of the different trades? And Did that sort of give you a unique perspective of the industry as a whole, sort of looking at the different ways that those trades need to be operated?
Yeah, and I think pretty much, Ben, they're all similar, right? Trades businesses are all similar. And the running the back end of the business is all very similar, but it's unique to them. So you get in and understand their business, you understand the framework of what it is that they need to put in place, and then you make it unique to their business. But most businesses operate on cash flow and profit. And so if you can get those things right in the beginning, so we call it the cash flow stabilization period, then the rest is just stuff that they don't understand. HR, KPIs, running teams, managing prospects, doing sales, all that sort of stuff is stuff they don't understand, but it's unique to their business and what they do.
That makes sense. And so looking at coaching in general, it means something different to everyone, I think. If some people have heard of coaching, some people kind of know what it is, and some really don't know anything about it. How would you define what you do for people that either don't know what business coaching for tradies is, or don't even know what coaching is at all?
Look, I guess the biggest thing is to have someone that sits outside your business, that's not emotionally involved in it, and really looks at the numbers, because it's all data, right? It's all data driven, and most of the time tradies are operating in an emotional space where it's like, my baby, it's my business. I can't get someone else to do what I do. It's all the same. So a coach actually makes you realize and sees the things that you don't see because you're in the weeds, right? And so a coach sits outside of that and asks different questions, but has a different view over things. But they also help you perform better. So anytime you get a coach, whether it's in sport or business or anything else you do, generally you will perform better because you've got a coach. So if you go to the gym, for example, and you get a personal trainer, you're probably going to lift more and heavier than what you would if you're on your own. And so the same says for your business, if you liken it to that, well, you're probably going to perform a lot better when you've got a coach there beside you, lifting you up when you're down, changing your mindset around things, telling you can do stuff, and just helping you to see the way to do it, and then keeping you accountable to it. So, if you've got a personal trainer, you're hardly likely to not go to the gym that morning, right? You're more likely to turn up.
Yeah. And what would you say is sort of, when does someone need a coach versus they're just needing an accountant or a business consultant or something like that? When's a coach specifically useful to a tradie business operator?
Ben, I would say right from the very beginning, right? And I know people are going to say we don't have the budget for coaching, right? But there's more than, one way to skin a cat. But if you haven't got money to invest in your business up front, you shouldn't be going into business for a start, right? And a coach will help save you years and stress if you got them on board from the very first part. Like, I've got clients at the moment that started with me 5 months into their journey, right? And they were like, I wish I had you sooner, because you would have stopped me doing all that stuff I did for 5 months and not making any money. So, yeah, I would say in the very beginning, and if you can't afford it, well, there's other ways around it. There's books, there's podcasts, there's, things that you can do to educate yourself around how to be a good business owner, not a good tradie, because you're already that anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do speak to coaches quite a bit around the investment aspect of coaching. It's when you're a business operator, you're constantly paying for external services like accounting or IT management or something like that, marketing. A coach, I guess, does fit into that realm of support that helps your business scale. It helps to keep you on track. But I do hear that often a client or a potential client sees the investment as the biggest barrier to actually starting coaching. Would you say that's pretty accurate?
Generally, it's probably we're last on the list of things that need to be, to be invested in, right? Because, when you start, you got your job management platform, you got your accounting software, you've got your accountant, you got your bookkeeper, you probably got your partner doing some stuff, right? Then you got your tools, your boys, your utes, right? And then it's like, but now I'm not making any money, so I need a coach. I guess, coming back to your thing about accountants, right? If you don't set your P&L up from, your profit and loss statement from the very, very beginning the right way, and an accountant will just do as they're told, right? Or do what they think. You won't know your numbers in your business anyway. So even if you just invest in a coach to set you up for the first month and then off you go do it. It will save you thousands, absolute thousands, because accountants are good but they're very busy, right? And they just, they generally, and if you go and see an accountant, they're accounting for what's already happened, right? Whereas coaches work in the future. What's going to happen? What's the potential risk? What are the things you need to look out for? Let's do a cash flow forecast and see when you're going to run out of money. What's your break-even point? Accountants don't really do that sort of stuff. A financial planner might, so you might invest in a financial planner. But that's what coaches specialize in, is helping you see what's coming and get prepared for it rather than what's already happened and how do I fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of the difference between looking at historical data and looking at what are the challenges you're having now and how do you move forward from there.
Yeah, and generally, Ben, you will go and see your accountant every quarter, right, when it's bash time, right? And that's too late to do anything about it. Whereas, you work with a coach, they go, mate, if you don't do anything about it in the next week, you're going under, or you're going to end up with a tax bill, or you're going to pay this, or, have you set up your business bank accounts to make sure you're putting your tax away and you don't ever touch it so you don't get into debt to the tax man because it's not your money, right? And things like that. It's just, I think if I'd known that in the beginning, I wouldn't have gone into anywhere near the trouble I got into.
Yeah, and I think even though coaching can be seen as, as you say, it's one of the last sort of helpers that you take on as a business owner potentially, and the investment can be seen as a hurdle. We are seeing the greatest adoption of coaching ever. Really, it is one of the fastest growing industries in the world at the moment. What do you think's driving that? What are the sort of industry factors or the mindset factors that are sort of driving people towards coaching more than ever?
Probably the suicide rates in the construction industry. There's 190 construction workers take their life every year through stress and the problems of running a business. And then 3,500 builders went bankrupt in Australia this year. 1,400 were in New South Wales. So things are sort of saying to people, well, we need to do things differently. We need to learn how to be a business owner, not just a good tradie. Because a good tradie will get you somewhere. And you could earn and have a good job and make good money. But when you start scaling and bringing people on, then you've got to start looking at, well, how do I manage this beast that I'm about to create? Because I'm going to be on the tools still trying to make money. But then how do I run the back end if I'm doing that? And now if you're wearing 20 different hats in your business, you're not going to do anything very well. And I think because of the exposure to coaching and people can see the success of people that are using coaches, and I talk to people every day and they said, yeah, my mate told me I've got to get a coach. So it's mates now looking out for mates as well. And I think that's huge. In terms of, it never used to be that way. It always used to be, don't go near coaches, they rip you off, they're no good, and I've never had any success. Whereas now, the guys are telling each other, well, mate, best thing I did was get a coach. And so I think that's probably one of the reasons why it's shifting. And with everything changing so quickly and rapidly, cost of living, material prices going up overnight, a lot of builders went bankrupt when the prices of timber doubled overnight because they're on fixed price quotes. Right. And so they had to try and honor these fixed price quotes that they'd committed to. Now, for a builder, that could be 12 months worth of work. And now he's paying double for timber rates, and then put that with the petrol prices going up and then, and then the labor prices going up. So it's kind of that point where your mates are now telling you mate, hey, you should get a coach because they're going to help you.
A couple of the statistics you mentioned there around suicide rates and about businesses failing and that sort of thing. What do you think, and you just mentioned some of the factors there around the costs, costs of increasing for businesses and so on. What are the broader sort of industry implications that are making it so much harder these days for these guys to manage their teams and to manage the finances and, all of the duties of running a business?
I think if I had to look at it as a whole, it would be finding good workers, right? Those boys or guys and girls that you can trust to leave on a site to represent your business so you can get off site and go and do your bookwork or work on the back end of your business, right? And there's still this perception that the business owner needs to be on the tools every day with the boys and the teams, right? And the girls in there. It's just, why? He's a business owner. He shouldn't be on the tools at all. He should be going surfing, playing golf when he can, but also, working on the back end of his business, building relationships with other people and partners that are going to help him, bring in more work. That's theoretically where his strength is. And yes, it is building. But I think, and if I look across the people that I coach, it's really finding those people that you can trust to leave on site to do the job as if you were standing next to them. And that becomes the hard thing for then the business owner to let go. So therefore, when they do let go, things fall over, and then they go, see, told you, I can't work on my business because there's too many reworks now. There's too many mistakes. Customers are complaining. And in the age of being one bad Google review away from, kind of destruction of your business, it's quite scary place to be operating in, I think. So yeah, it comes down to, and if you look at the amount of apprentices coming through, there's nowhere near as many apprentices these days coming through. So they're not taking to the trades. So yeah, it becomes a sort of a market where you can't find those good team members. And then if you do find them, they're asking for ridiculous amounts of money that you can't pay because you can't charge that to your clients. So it's like, well, what do you do?
So I guess with a labor shortage, the cost of labor goes up exponentially, and there's just not enough people to hire to begin with.
No, and you look at this, the government want 1.2 million homes built this year, right? It's like, well, how do we achieve that? We haven't got the apprentices coming through. We haven't got the businesses are going under. So I'm not sure we're going to achieve that. So then they look outside or they go overseas and bring workers back in.
So there's a lot of work to be done, as you say. There's a lot of demand for buildings to go up, but are you saying that there's not really enough workers to fulfill on that demand of the work?
Not necessarily that there's not enough workers. I would say the quality of workers is changing.
Right.
And I do talk about this a lot, and I hate to generalize because I know there's some really good quality kids out there. And I liken this because we took a group of under 12-year-olds to a football trip into Japan, right? And when I was younger, and I don't know how old you are, Ben, so I'm not going to assume, right? But when I was younger, if I forgot my shin pads or my boots or whatever, I couldn't ring mum and ask her for it, right? And the kids these days, there's so much reliance on mum and dad. Like, where's this mum? Mum, I haven't got this. Mum, I haven't got that, right? And mum's the first point of call. So now these kids come out of TAFE and they're like, to the business owner, Adam, where's this? Adam, where's that? How do I do this? What do I do this? And they don't back themselves to think about doing it themselves because they've never had to kind of problem solve compared to us when I was younger. I had to problem solve. I used to go home from school if I had a problem and go through the Encyclopedia Britannica to solve a problem, or go to the library, or, go to the dictionary, right? These are the things. But now they've got Google, they've got YouTube, they've got so many things that they can problem solve or use to problem solve. But the idea for business owners is to teach them how to problem solve, not solve their problems. And if you get that framework right, then you start having really good quality team members.
And if there's not enough instinct in those team members that you're hiring, then suddenly the pressure's back on the business owner to have to not necessarily micromanage, but to double check everything and to oversee more than probably they need to be doing or they should be doing.
And if you think about a tradie, they're not used to KPIs. They're not used to sort of performance reviews. They're not used to any of that sort of stuff that they call corporate jargon or corporate stuff, right? But once they introduce it, they're like, oh my God, this is great. Like, there's no longer any emotional aspect to it. It's all data driven. So it's all factual. So if I'm having a performance review with an employee of someone's business, I've just got my data in front of me, my facts, punctuality. Okay, so you say you're turning up at 7, but you're not here at 7. You are here at 7. Yes, I agree. But you're putting your boots on. You go to the toilet. You're making a coffee. And now you're ready to start at 20 past 7. So to my books, that's not punctuality. And it's all data driven. It's not emotional. And I think once we start implementing that stuff into it, it becomes so much easier for the boys themselves to know where they're going and how they get there and what they're being measured on for pay rises, etc. And then for the business owner to really measure their employees and how do they make them better? Like, what competency frameworks, what do they need to train them in? What do I need to do with these guys to make them better at what they do? So it's no longer just teaching them the skills. It's teaching them how to think and how to behave as well.
But from a business owner perspective, there's obviously so many systems and tools that you need to be thinking about to run a business effectively. And there's tools out there now, the massive adoption of ChatGPT, for example, that can help you write a business plan, can help you write quotes or build quote templates, or even give you business advice, for example. And you even mentioned sort of KPIs and that sort of thing. Do you find that more and more business owners in the tradie space are looking towards these types of tools for, to build the frameworks and templates that they need, and just looking at those for efficiencies?
Look, I think there's still a lot of skepticism from tradies, right? So tradies are a skeptical bunch, and they always have that sort of thinking that no one can do it like I can, or no one can do it the same as what I do, right? And so adopting ChatGPT into their business when they haven't trained it, or they don't know how to talk to it, and they don't know how to, to manage the GPT itself, is a bit scary, because it can spit out information that could be incorrect, right? Because it's not trained on their business specifically. Right. So the GPTs that I build for tradies are trained on their business specifically, their margins, their numbers, right? But if a tradie said to me, build out a business plan that takes me to 20% net profit, the GPT is going to go, well, give me all the information. And then the tradie goes, well, I don't know where that is. Right. So I think in terms of what do they need to function properly would be a good CRM, customer relationship management software, where you can build out all your induction courses for your employees, and manage a fair bit of your HR stuff in there as well. You can manage all your client relations, your emails, your social media. You need a good job management software that helps track your jobs to profit, and making sure that you are hitting the margins that you need to hit, and your boys know exactly where they're going and what they need to do. And then you need a good accounting software. And they're probably the three main tools that I would suggest to any tradie to have number one first up.
And, of the prospects that you speak to, the clients that reach out to you and you have a call with, how many of them do you think have those systems in place already?
I would say zero. Maybe they've got zero. Right? They've got zero. The accounting software on MYOB, seems to be the two favorite for tradies. CRMs, they're probably like, what is that? Like the more established ones definitely have it. And the job management software, the more established. But when we're talking the more up and coming 2 to 5 possibly don't have any of that stuff in place yet, because it's another thing they've got to build. It's another thing they've got to work on, because you don't just plug a job management software into your business and it's ready to go. Same with a CRM. Like, it takes somebody to build it out for you, or you build it yourself. Now, most tradies are still in the space of, don't invest in somebody else to do it for me, I'll do it myself, and then it never gets done.
And as part of your practice, how do you actually work on the implementation of those systems? Do you have preferred systems that you've developed? How does that work in terms of working with you?
So, yeah, it's a good question. I guess how I see myself different to most business coaches is I actually get in and do the work for them. So my goal is to keep you on the tools, making money, while I build out the back end of your business. Now, you being on the tools can also, one, you earn money, so you're still a billable asset in your business. 2, you're now managing your team and making sure they're doing the right thing while you're on site until it's ready to let go. And then once I've done it and built it for you, so I could use Go High Level for your CRM, for example, which we build out your business in a box, manages your whole box in the back end, like your business, and then we'd use Tradie or ServiceMate to manage your jobs. And then Xero, I can tap into your Xero file or get the bookkeeper to look over your Xero file. And so we do a lot of work for the tradies, because I'm a big believer in that they don't need to know how it's built. They don't need to know anything about how it's built. Like they're Ute. They don't know how it's built, but they know how to drive it, right? They know how to get from A to B, step in the car and I get from A to B. So it's the same with their business, the back end of their business. They don't need to know how a cash flow forecast is created. They just need the data from it, the facts and the figures, right? So that's kind of what we do. We get in, we understand your business, we build it out for you, and then we plug you back in when it's done, and we teach you how to use it. So I'll teach you how to do your performance reviews. I'll teach you how to look at your cash flow forecast and see how it makes you money and what it's doing. I'll teach you to go over your P&L and know where you're making money and losing money in your business. But you don't need to know how all that stuff created. So that's kind of where we sit in the market right now, is that we keep you on the tools making money while we build out your back end.
Yeah, great. And I mean, there must be a lot of paperwork to go through as well. When you're getting in there for the first time and going through all of the documentation associated with the business, the P&L, the balance sheets, all of that. And you also mentioned that you use GPTs to help understand and sort of analyze that data. Mm-hmm. How does that work from your business perspective?
So for me, I think ChatGPT is an awesome thing, right? But it still gets things wrong. So if you don't know what you're looking for in the first place, you're not going to know if it gets it wrong. Don't feed it the right data, it's not going to give me back what I need. So even with the GPTs I've built for tradies, I'm constantly changing them and updating them and training them on what I need. I'm even telling them they're getting it wrong and they're going, yeah, you're right. I have got it wrong, right? So And this is with key things like, if we're building out a standard operating procedure for somebody, say for a guy who does tiles, like tile rescue, and you go through the regrouting process and you go, but hang on a sec, you missed that step. And he goes, oh yeah, I did. Right. So if you're the business owner and you go, well, I'm just going to give everything to ChatGPT and then just copy and paste it, you're going to get stuck at some point because it's going to probably be wrong unless you're reading it and understanding it yourself. So I constantly train GPTs. I trained a GPT the other day on a landscaping business's quoting process, right? And to begin with, it was getting it wrong, and I was, I had to keep manipulating, kept educating it, putting more quotes in, and then it finally got it, and it's saving him hours, right? But if he doesn't know how to do that, so he was like, it's just too hard.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of sort of upfront work as well. So you're doing a lot of deep analysis of all the, the way the business works, setting up the initial systems to understand that and sort of build the core business infrastructure to operate moving forward. Mm. But what does 1 month in the program look like versus 10 months down the track? Like how does that relationship with you change over time?
So yeah, it's a good question. So in the beginning, it's all about, for me, in the first quarter is cash flow stabilization. Right, making sure you've got enough money to pay me, basically. Right, me singing for my supper and going, I'm going to make you profitable. I want to make you 20% net profit in your back pocket, right, after all this is said and done. So we look at everything in the first quarter, but in basically within the first week, you're going to know how much you should be charging per hour to make money. Now, you can stay at home and lose money and, spend time with your family or watch Netflix. You don't have to go to work for 70 hours a week to try and lose money, right? And so if you're not making money in the very, very beginning, everything falls over. You've got no money to invest into your softwares. You've got no money to invest in your coach and your accountant, your bookkeeper, your team, right? So that is, for me, is very key to understand the numbers. And at least in the first month, you will know exactly what you need to be charging before you leave the house. Right? And I think that's a key to understanding a trades business. But then in the background, we've got my team working on all the other stuff. Right? So, but I guess where we're different is I'm already building out your CRM. It's a shell of your business kind of operating procedure that you just chuck into your business, and then we make it specific to your business. So all the hard work is done. All we then have to do is just make it specific to your business. So all of the things you need are very common across most businesses, and we just drag and drop whatever it is that you need into your CRM or your system, and we just make it specific to you, show you how to use it, and off you go. So within the first 12 months, you basically got a profitable business. And if you don't, you either need to sack me as a coach or give up as a business owner and go and do something else.
And then after 12 months, what does that look like? I mean, so everything's set up. You should be self-sufficient by the end of that 1 year. What happens then? You sort of
look. You can either just take the system and run with it and keep working it. So it's a subscription price, obviously, for the CRM, but at the end of it, most business owners need the accountability. They love the fact that I get in and talk to them. I'm really honest with them. I don't let anything slip. Like I did an intervention on a business owner today between him and his secretary because he's just a champagne cork in his business. And if we don't remove him, the business is going under. But he's off here trying to find loans and over here to do this. And all he had to do was sit in the office and get his quotes done. That was it, right? And so I now made the secretary the boss. And so she's now telling him what to do and what she needs, and he's going to get it done. So he needed that accountability factor. So business owners still need that person. It's quite a lonely place, right? Like I said to you earlier, your wife gets sick of hearing you, she loves the successes, but she hates to hear how bad you are and how you're struggling all the time, right? And same with your kids. So it's like you need that person that's a sounding board that you can go, mate, I'm really struggling at the moment, right? And somebody goes, okay, let's have a look at that. Whereas your mates will go, mate, you'll be fine. She'll be okay. Oh, I remember I was sitting similar time, and you're not getting anything out of it, right? Whereas a coach will sit there and really unpack your head, and they give you space to just be you, right? And to talk about it. There's no judgment. There's no, anything that is not on the table for me. Like could be drugs, could be alcohol, could be, whatever it might be. We talk about everything. And so the business owner does need that accountability. So they choose at the end whether they still want to have the relationship with me. I'm coaching businesses for 6 years now, because they love that accountability. They love turning up every week, telling me their numbers, where they're at, and bragging about their wins, but also celebrating, not celebrating, but unpacking their losses. So I get texts from my business owner saying, man, I'm going down a rabbit hole. And it's not looking good. So I'll just pick them up, have a conversation with them, dust them off and put them back out in the field. And they're like, oh, thank you.
It's interesting the example you just gave as well, where you sort of restructured the management of that business. It sounds like the perspective was the most important part of that as well. Just having that sort of external perspective and looking in and saying, we're doing things wrong here and we need to make a bit of a change.
And, a lot of people will say to me, Aaron, I've never been spoken to like that ever. And I said, clearly not, because you're still in the same place. Right?
That's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But they're like, you are so brutally honest. And I'm like, I have to be. Otherwise, you're not going to move. You're not going to do anything different. And I just said, I can't have you sitting in this office telling me every week that we've still got a cash flow issue because you're the issue. And, your secretary, the lady over here, she's super organized. She's super well structured in how she does stuff. She needs to make you organized. And if you follow her plan, we'll get shit done. And he was like, yeah, that works. Okay. I can do that.
So you're also trained in NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming. For those who don't know what it is, could you sort of give a bit of background about what that means and how it's relevant to operating a tradie business?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a big beast in itself, right? Because the mind is a very complex thing. Well, so we think, right? So neuro-linguistic programming is all about how your mind is programmed through past experiences, through your own thoughts, through your own beliefs. And so neuro-linguistic programming really helps you to reprogram your mind. So the first step is you do neuro-linguistic programming, which is you understand how your mind works, right? Or my mind works. And then for the next step is to be a master prac where you understand how other people's mind works and help them unpack that for them. So if you think about your childhood up until the age of 7 is how you were formed as a human, right? And your beliefs and your values and everything were locked in from that time. So we've got to have a look at who were the people around you at that point and what influence did they have over you that now programmed you the way you are, right? And most people think that they can't get out of something, right? But that's a belief structure in itself. So if you've got a belief that I'm never going to make money in my trades business, well, guess what? You're never going to make money in your trades business. But where did the belief come from? It's just a thought, right? So it's a thought that you have, you're never going to make money in your trades business. But is it clear to say that you could also think differently? I'm always going to make money in my trades business, and now go and create that. So neuro-linguistic programming is removing old programs for me and putting in new ones. So think of it as you've got an old laptop, it's full of bugs and viruses and everything else, and you've never updated the software and firmware and all that sort of stuff, right? And it's just broken. Well, my mind was broken, right? So I had to look at a way to how do I fix it? And I basically look at it as taking my old laptop, taking it down to Harvey Norman, trading it in for a new one, and then opening it up and going, it's got nothing on it. Awesome. Now I can put all the programs in that I want to put in, not that somebody else wants to put in. So that's kind of how I frame it for people, and they go, oh, I get it now. And how we process information is completely different, right? Every person's different. And the only time that sort of comes into fruition is when everyone's ego gets involved, right? So I could say to you, hey, Ben, that's a really lovely white T-shirt you've got on right now. You go, it's not white, it's black. And we could sit here and have this argument, right? But what you're not actually doing is finding out what I've done with that information, which I could be colorblind, right? But you've just gone, nah, you're wrong and I'm right. That's how we process information. So we take it through our senses, our visual, auditory, kinesthetic. We take it into our brain. We make a movie about it based on our past experiences or remembered beliefs. And then we spit out what we think, right? Now, generally, no two realities are going to be the same. And who's right or who's wrong doesn't really matter, right? So neuro-linguistic programming is understand how your brain is programmed and how you reprogram it a different way if you want a different result. And so that comes into tradies of, okay, you've been doing it this way for a long time now. How's that going for you? Well, it's not going well, mate. Well, would you like to change that? And then we look at the belief structure that sits underneath that. Well, my dad said he's the first one in to work and he's always the last one out, right? And you've got to work harder than all the boys around you. Okay, is that true today? Well, it's true for him, but it's not true for you, right? If you were a really good business owner and you understood how to run a business better and you're an investor in your business and your business made you money, would you need to be there from 7 till 5? And I go, well, no. Okay, well, so the belief structure needs to change. But your dad did it that way and it worked for him, but not necessarily for you, does it work for you? No, because I don't see my family. I'm, doing quotes on the dinner table at night time. I'm up after the kids go to bed. I'm sitting on the computer. On the weekends, I'm out doing quotes and seeing people. I'm missing the kids' sport. Okay? Well, that's not how it has to be if you don't want it to be. If you want it to be, that's fine, right? But when you're talking about belief structure, it's how do you change the belief that's ingrained in you so that you don't feel like you're going against your father.
Right. With the clients that you work with, do you see any common thinking patterns or belief structures that are quite common in the tradie industry that are, maybe it is that like I need to do things the same as the way my father did it, or I want to not do things deliberately and intentionally the way that my father did it. Are you seeing any common threads?
Look, I think it's the common thread is a tradie knows how to be a good tradie, right? They've never taught how to run a business, right? And neither was Dad. Dad just basically turned up, built his business on word of mouth, did a great job for people, and he was like the community hero, right? So everyone in the community used him. Nowadays, everything's online, right? So if you're not that kind of savvy business owner in terms of knowing what your online presence looks like, knowing what your boys look like in uniform, knowing how they turn up, knowing how they treat people, what the values are. So the common theme for me is that there's more of a need these days to know how to run a business than there is to be a good tradie. And the best business owners are the ones that don't know how to do the trade because they won't go back on the tools. They'll always work on it and find someone better than them to do the job. So common theme is from Dad going, mate, you need to be working in your business to make money, to no, you don't. If you work outside your business, you'll still make money. And I remember specifically having a conversation with a panel beater. He said, I am so scared to tell my dad I'm going on holiday because he will say, you can't have a holiday. You run a business. You can only have a holiday at Christmas when we close down. He had the conversation. The dad still hasn't forgiven him since. So now he's going against family values, which is scary, right?
When he's probably just sitting there thinking, I need a break. I need to be, I'm going to burn out. I can't be effective as a business operator if I continue with this lack of momentum.
Mm-hmm. And Dad was always the first one in and the last one out, right?
Yeah.
He locked up the door after everyone else has left. He swept the floors. Nowadays, you got to think, who can I get to do that for me so I can operate on a better level, right?
So beyond the mindset, and I know you mentioned as well that, the best business operators are the ones that don't get back all the tools and that they're not focused on the trade at all. What are the things that make a great business operator now? And what are the skills that matter most?
So to me is one, thinking like an investor, right? Your business is an investment. Whether you're gonna work it till it's, till you retire and it makes you the money that you save, or you're gonna work it to a point where you can sell it. Now, you can do both if you're a smart operator and you know how to create a business that doesn't rely on you being in it, right? And if you think about from an investor perspective, if you were to go and buy an investment property tomorrow, how much time would you spend in it for it to make you money? Probably nothing, right? Or you'd probably do it up. You'd get some painters in to do it, or, fix it up so it's rentable. So you put someone in it, get a real estate agent to manage it for you. Now that pays your mortgage. Hopefully, if you've positively geared it or, break even, then as time goes on, your mortgage comes down, your equity goes up, you've now got an investment and you've spent no time in it. But tradies go to work for 60 to 70 hours in their investment and it still doesn't make them money because they don't understand how to run a business. And half the time they're getting paid less than their employees, right? So why would you do that? To me, if you started with an investor head and you go, I'm going to create this into an investment that I can either sell or it's going to make me 20% net profit for the whole time that I've got it. And I'm just going to, invest that money into other things that makes me money. Then you're going to be a successful person, successful business owner. So really, if I had to give one piece of advice to a business owner or a tradie or any business owner for that matter, is be an investor in your business first and then come into the operation side of it and work out how to get that structured without you in it.
And I mean, having a successful business that's structured well without you in it means having good suppliers, good relationships outside of yourself as well, right? And obviously that's a demanding aspect of building and operating a business.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing that as a challenge for these business operators as well?
Yeah, definitely. And you know, that comes back to then your CRM, your automations in your CRM, your emails, your follow-ups, you know, how you communicate better. If you're constantly on the tools, you can't be ringing and building relationships with people. So, you know, you've either got a salesman doing that for you or it's you that's doing it, right? Or your estimator's doing it. But if you're not, you know, building those relationships outside so that they then supply you well, look after you in terms of pricing, you know, they've got your back when things go wrong, then you're in trouble. You're going to be in trouble, and you know, you're operating. And most tradies are firefighters. They're always constantly putting out fires, right? And it's just one thing after another. It's all reactionary kind of stuff instead of, you know, kind of planned out stuff. And I get you've probably will have those things that need firefighting eventually, you know, occasionally, but it doesn't have to be every day. Stressful. Now you're in fight and flight mode all the time.
Yeah, it's not sustainable mentally, is it? That you're constantly in that sort of high cortisol, you know, state of life, and it's you can't keep working like that.
You know, it's a huge factor in most tradies' life. They're constantly on the go, constantly on the burn. They're always thinking about work. What's tomorrow? What's happening? And you get the clients that want to ring you at 7:00 at night, right? You know, I'm not answering that, and then you spend the whole night worrying about what do they want? Well, I hope everything's okay, right? We instantly did. You know, jump to the negative instead of going, oh, well, they're probably ringing up and say, thanks, it was a great job. Looks awesome. Right. But we instantly think, oh, what do they want? What's gone wrong? What have my boys done?
Yeah. You assume the worst automatically.
Yeah. And so you spend the whole night worrying about it instead of just picking it up and going, hey, how you going? Because you also don't want to deal with a challenging conversation at 7 or 8 o'clock at night if you've had a couple of drinks or whatever it might be, right? Or you're relaxing with the family. So you don't answer it. And then you spend the whole night worrying about it. As opposed to, and then they go, oh, no, we just wanted to say, oh, thanks, you did a great job. Looks lovely, right? The next day, and you're like, oh, I spent all night worrying about it. So, yeah, they're constantly in that kind of cortisol space of worry, mindset, you know, stress. And that's not a good place to be either.
You mentioned earlier about mental health as well. Obviously, social media plays a role in how tradies get business a lot of the time, depending on what sort of level you're operating at. But even if it's not about client acquisition, Google reviews and recommendations in the digital space and building a digital brand is obviously a really important part of being a business operator. What impact does that have on mental health when Google reviews sort of take a turn for the worst and it's sort of things that are out of your control and it's just another thing to manage? Is that a factor you see?
Yeah, and it's more about, you know, like we had a saying in hospitality, the customer is always right? Which they are until they're not, right? If they've got a valid argument, I get it. Like I understand it. And people are so quick to judge people based on bad performance rather than on good performance, right? So it's harder to get a Google review that says you're great compared to getting a Google review that says you're not good, right? And you're really bad. And people are so quick to jump online and give you a bad Google review, right? Instead of asking you, like, not confronting, even just having the conversation with you and saying, hey, Ben, I'm really not happy with you boys. I'm really not happy with how this is running. You know, what can we do about that? They just go on and, you know, don't pay your bill at the end and then give you a really bad Google review. So business owners and most of my guys are all so worried about a bad Google review if something goes wrong that they're then doing stuff they shouldn't be doing for free to keep the person happy. And now that's costing them money, right? Whereas you're going to get bad Google reviews and you're more authentic if you've got good and some bad and some average Google reviews, not just, oh, they were great. Looks like, oh, okay, these guys are kind of not authentic. Whereas if you've got some bad reviews and you respond to those reviews in a nice way and say, yeah, totally agree. We absolutely didn't get that right, you know, and we would love to have the opportunity to help you fix that again. If the relationship's burnt, well, I get it, but we really thank you for the feedback. Now, that's a really good way to respond to a Google review that's not great, right? And people look at your response because you're human. You're not going to get things right 100% of the time, and you're not going to please every single person. They're all going to have different expectations. I could give one quote to 5 people, and they'd all have a different expectations of what I was going to do for that quote. Right? And I would even sit there and go, so when we're talking about preparation, are we talking about you want this completely sanded back, imperfection free, right? Or do you want just a job that's going to help you sell your place? And they're like, oh, we just want to freshen up. And then they go through and point every single imperfection out that you've done. and not pay your invoice. And it's like, but hang on a sec, we had that conversation. So getting things up front as well, getting, clients to sign things and making your terms and conditions very clear. Communication throughout the whole project, is key. Dealing with objections as they come up rather than running away from them. Everyone runs away when somebody looks angry, right? Because it's fear of confrontation. It's actually only a conversation. So let's have the conversation and find out where we're at so we can fix it at the time, not at the time when it comes to paying my invoice for the final payment and then the Google review time, right?
Right.
So it's really, helping to have those conversations. So, and if we're constantly living in the fear of a bad Google review or a bad review online, then you're back into that fight or flight moment. You're kind of like this all the time.
But as you say, I mean, that having good communication and being prepared for those potentially confronting situations can help with that anyway, right? It can help mitigate the risk of getting negative public reviews.
Correct. And most people just want to be listened to, right? If they have got an issue, for them, it's also very difficult for them to bring up a challenging conversation. I don't know anyone on the planet that loves confrontation, right? That says, I love confrontation, bring it on, right? Because it's awkward at points, right? And it's especially awkward for people that don't know how to have those conversations. But you, as a client, want to be heard. You want to be listened to, and you want somebody to actually acknowledge what you've said, not like fight you on it every single day. You got that wrong, Ben. You got that wrong, Ben. You got that wrong. No, we didn't do that. No, we didn't do that. It was him. It was it was the other trade. No, it wasn't. It was you. I saw you. It's going, oh, yeah, okay, well, I could see how that could be upsetting you right now, Ben. And, what would it take to help you with that? Like, what do we need to do? And here's what I'm prepared to do as the business owner. Does that work for you, right? But we've acknowledged the challenge that you've got, because it is a challenge in your head. It's how you've processed the information, right? I've got to deal with your movie that you're making now, right? And so now I just got to unpack the movie and go, well, okay, well, what's the solution for this movie that you've made? And can we come to an agreement that works for both of us?
As you mentioned, the client and the tradie have the same goal at the end of the day. They want the project to go well. They want the finished result to be as planned and on budget and on time and everything. But there is often going to be times where there's confronting conversations. And what role does coaching play in sort of helping tradies prepare for that? Is there an aspect of the coaching experience that focuses on dealing with that situation?
Yeah. So once again, we come back into the NLP framework. Like what I just said to you before, I help them have the conversation. So they'll always get on the phone to me before they're, in the car on the way there. We'll talk them through the conversation, what's some possible outcomes for it. But if you're constantly going into thinking it's going to be a confrontation, well, guess what? You're going to create a confrontation because your back's going to be up. You're going to be like this, right? As opposed to open. Hey, Ben, I understand there's a challenge with something that the boys have done. How can I help you with that? Right? And then you'll spit out all of this stuff. And I've got to go, okay, well, now I've got to process that and go, well, how can I help you with that? Right? And I can see how this aspect works. And, my boys definitely did do that. But this bit I'm not sort of quite okay with, but let's cover that bit first and then we'll go into the next bit, right? So you as the client are kind of almost coached through the thing yourself. But if I just come and said, nah, Ben, you're wrong, well, it's not going to go well for me as the tradie, because you're just not going to pay my invoice. And now I've funded your whole project and I'm not going to get paid. So now it's not going to work well for me if I go in as combative, right? And most of the times the boys and, the tradies try and avoid the conversation, right? As opposed to just having the conversation, because you'll make up a story in your head of how big this conversation is going to be and how angry they are and how frustrated they are and they're not going to pay. And you've already made that all up before you even get there. But it could just be, hey, if you do this, we're going to be happy. And you're like, oh, I went through all that for nothing.
Yeah. I mean, one thing you mentioned earlier as well was about how the best business owners are the ones that aren't on the tools. And I imagine that this is a journey of moving away from the tools and learning those things you need to know to operate a business effectively. Do you find that some of the tradies that get to that level, that are, working well, operating their business well, they have a bit of, they really miss being on the tools and they want to get back in there, and that's, it's part of their life, that's where they've come from. Is that a hard transition? It
is when I first meet them. Right. I'll always say, theoretically, one day you probably won't be working on the tools ever again. I don't want to do that, Aaron. I never want to get off the tools. Right. And you meet them, say, 10, 15 years later when they're a little bit older and the knees are going, they've been playing football on the weekend. It's harder to get up ladders and stuff like that. And they're like, should I listen to you, Aaron? Like, seriously, I should have been off the tools a long time ago. My back's hurting, my this and that. And tradie, it's a hard game, right? And I listened to somebody on a podcast the other day saying tradies, when they get to a certain age, should go and do something else. Get out of the trade because it's too hard and they're too old. It's like, what? No, they should just be running their business better, right? And they should be off the tools by then because they've created something that's, profitable and doesn't need them in it, rather than going and doing something completely different at the age of 45 or 50, right? I mean, I can still get on the tools for sure. I can get up ladders and paint, but tell you what, the next day, jeepers, it hurts.
I feel it, yeah.
Right? So, yeah, but it is fun. I love getting back on the paintbrush and doing stuff because it's rewarding. And for me, I could put my headphones in if I'm working on site on my own, put my headphones in, listen to a good podcast, audiobook, making a difference in people's lives. It's great, right? But then you put the stresses of working with people beside you and you're getting annoyed because they're there and you're older and crankier and, right? It's not a joy to go to work sometimes. So, yeah, I would say, look, in any business, at some point you probably want to get off the tools. And if you don't, that's okay, but at least you've got the option.
Yeah.
Have the option there that plan B is I want to get off the tools, or plan A is I stay on the tools. But either way, my business is going to make me money and it's not going to be stressful.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And if it relies on you to be in the tools, it's not a successful business because you can't sell it now, right?
Do you find that is the intention of most of the clients you work with, is to sell their business?
No. They haven't even thought about an exit strategy, right? Because they just think they're going to be a tradie for the rest of their life. That's kind of their thinking, right? As opposed to, no, I'm going to create something that's a massive investment. If you look at Jim's mowing franchise, right? It started with Jim going around mowing people's lawns for free.
Yeah.
Right? But it's one of the most successful franchises in the world. I mean, there's Jim's ironing, there's Jim's cleaning, there's Jim's window washing, you name it. Jim's got something in it for sure.
It's hard to drive down the street without seeing a Jim something, or, a ute on the street with Jim's face on the side.
Correct. And he's a tradie, right? He just used to mow lawns, right? He had a mower. And I don't even think he had a whippersnapper. He probably had those old shears that he went around like that and cut their edges, right? Well, the hedges. But now look at it. It's one of the most successful franchises in the world, I'd say, other than, say, McDonald's and some of those. But in terms of a trades franchise, that's pretty huge. And, he does things well. He's got KPIs. He takes them away and inducts people into his franchise in Melbourne, I think it was, that, takes them down to his house and makes sure they know how to be a proper business owner. He helps them grow so that he grows. Right? Every single person in your business can be an asset to you, can also take a division of your business and put it somewhere else, right? So say, for example, I'm on the Northern Beaches. I could be the Northern Beaches representative of your business and create what you've done, right? And do it for you. You could live out west, for example, right? And you could be the Western division of my business because your employees are assets. They, and they're things that they can start a business within a business and still everybody's growing. If you think of it like that, then you're always going to be investing back into your team. Like I've got people I work with at the moment and I coach the team. I coach their foreman, right? So that they'll be representatives of different areas when they get up to qualified properly.
Yeah, it's a big shift, isn't it? So once your business stops being you and starts being a brand and systems and a team and all of these different things that make up a high efficiency and high performing operation, then that's when it becomes exitable. And that's I guess that's a very different position than most tradies are in when they when they're operating.
Yeah, and then there's the tradies that just want to make enough money to have a good house, have a nice life, do the things they want to do, have the toys that they want, and that's okay as well. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But as long as you're kind of not stressed, not in fight or flight the whole time, not waking up at night because things aren't happening the way they should, right? You can create a business that would operate without you in it, but you can still be in it and it's not stressful. That's a way better position to be than kind of thinking, I've got a job and it's really underpaid and I'm working really long hours and the boss doesn't appreciate it. Oh, hang on a sec, I'm the boss.
Yeah. Right. And I guess, when you're the boss, often I guess you're putting more pressure on yourself than any other boss could as well.
Yeah. And nothing's ever good enough. You can't even live up to your own standards, right? And most of the time you're beating yourself up about all of the things you should have done or could have done. And, so I think it's an interesting space and it's definitely one that I love being in because I can just see it, right? And it's so easy to help somebody get out of stress pretty quickly. There's going to be those moments. Sure, we can't help that, But when you understand how to get out of stress and you got a roadmap onto doing it, and then you got someone pushing you along and doing it for you, it's gold, and most of my tradies are going, wow, I didn't even know this existed. And generally coaching, I've worked in both frameworks. So coaching, I'll coach you for an hour and you get 3 to 5 hours worth of work you got to go and do on your business. Now, if you don't know how to do one aspect of what we've just worked on, you're going to procrastinate over it and you're going to go back to the tools. And I'll say to you, hey, Ben, you didn't get that done last week. And you go, nah, mate, I was busy. Couldn't. Now I had this come up and this come up and this come up. All right, so you're going to get it done this week? Yep, promise. All right, next week turns up. Hey, Ben, how'd you go? Oh, mate, this came up and this came up. And then I had to go on the tools and this person was sick. Same excuses every week, right? And what I know is that it's procrastination for you. It's going to take you 5 hours to do one aspect, right? Whereas I'll just get in and do it for you and I'll take an hour and it's done. And say, Ben, by the way, that thing you were struggling with, I've done it. What's next? And you go, wow. And I remember sitting with a builder and I did something, I can't remember what it was, but it was something around his website. And his wife was sitting next to me when I did it. And she went, oh my God, you did that in an hour. I was like, yeah. She said it would have taken James 6 hours to do that. I've seen him do it before. Right? So that's 6 hours of time he's now not earning any money. And he's procrastinating over something as opposed to paying me for an hour. So we talk about investment. Well, is it a good investment of you going to do it for 6 hours or me doing it for an hour? And how much money can you make in 6 hours on your business or when you're working on the tools? So yeah, it is, that whole kind of coaching framework and all that sort of stuff I think it's a necessity for every trades business. And I don't care who you get it from, but get some sort of advisor, some sort of mentor, some sort of coach. I mean, you wouldn't join a football team like as a kid or, you wouldn't sign your kids up to a football team that didn't have a coach.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not going to work. You've got a whole lot of people running around not knowing what to do, right? The coach is kind of that person that wrangles everything in and gets everyone performing at their best. And, our job as a coach, especially as a sports coach, which I am, is to make the discrepancy between the weakest player and the best player less. And now we're operating at a good level.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. And I mean, listening to a lot of the things that coaching is bringing to the organization as well, especially in the tradie space, there's so much more than just the mindset. It's all the different technical aspects, the systems, the understanding what you're doing day to day, the reallocation of time, the understanding of your investment. There's all of these different aspects that if you don't sort of have a plan for, the coach can bring a huge amount of value.
And I'll give you an example, right? We did an exercise with a business owner once, right? And this is in my previous franchising group or coaching group, where we got a different hat for everything that he did in his job, right, in his business every day. And we said, every time you go and do something different, you have to put that hat on. So you might have the accounting hat, you've got the marketing hat, you've got the sales hat, you've got the, job management HR hat, you've got the OH&S hat. There's so many things in terms of operating a trades business, right? I think he rang me within about 3 hours and says, mate, I'm bloody exhausted. I said, what from? He said, putting these hats on and changing them just made me realize, oh my God, right? And if you're not focusing on things like you should be, you're not doing anything well. So if you're constantly doing this, right, you're not focusing on anything and doing it well. Right. And I remember specifically, like we talked about time management. I don't know how much time we got, but a business owner, one of the coaches I used to work with, very organized, very structured person. And when he was building the business, he would be the accountant, he would be the salesperson, he would be the coach, right? But he would have different days allocated for the different tasks. So he might be in the office and somebody rings up and they says, can we speak to the accounts department? We need this invoice paid. And he would go, no, sorry, the accounts department's not here today. They'll be in on Friday, right? And so they'd ring back on Friday and they'd say, can we speak to the accounts department? Say, yeah, he'd say, yeah, you're speaking to them. He said, but weren't you the guy I spoke to on Monday? He goes, yeah, but I wasn't doing accounts then. I was coaching. And I thought, wow, that's a great example of somebody who's just focused on that job for that day, and how much he got done was huge. And if you think about tradies, right, they're on the tools, they're nailing something, they're answering the telephone, they're managing the boys. Whew, that's exhausting.
Well, just to wrap us out today then, we've just hit an hour. What is one piece of actionable advice you could give to every tradie out there right now?
If you don't know your numbers, go and get a job. Because if you don't know the numbers in your business, it's going to take you out at some point. right? And you might as well go and get a job because they'll pay you every week. Right? Whereas your business won't pay you if you don't know the numbers. And I'm talking cash flow numbers. I'm understanding your margins in there and knowing everything about your break-even point, your cash flow forecast, your percentages, so your gross profit percentage, your net profit, and have your P&L set up so it gives you the data you want. When you've got that, you'll make better business decisions based on a business, not emotion.
Simple as that. Know your numbers.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks so much, Aaron. It's been great to chat with you today. Cheers for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate. I really enjoyed it.
Brilliant. All right. Well, thanks for everyone listening today. Please subscribe, and we'll have another episode in 2 weeks' time. But for now, we'll see you next time. Thanks very much.